Hey there, I'm Tony from Marathon Mates. This week on the podcast, we answer your commonly asked questions in relation to preparing, running, and importantly, finishing your next marathon. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
Welcome to the thrilling world of the flying runner, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Welcome back to the Flying Runner podcast. We are on episode 4. I'm Tony and I'm joined once again by Tim and Tara from Team Alice Running. Now, we've got a great episode lined up for you today, answering some of the most asked questions people have about marathon training and importantly, how to finish your next marathon. But before we get into that, I need to give a shout out to all our New Zealand listeners, and thank you so much. We actually we are the 8th biggest podcast in New Zealand running. Whoa!
Yeah, it's a pretty choice,
so thank you, Terry Frew, and to all of Terry Frew's friends who tuned in last week. We really do appreciate that, and I hope you really enjoyed the episode. So let's get into it. Team Alice, how has your week been?
Well, we've been pretty good, I guess. We're starting to, we've come off jetty to jetty last weekend, and we're now starting to log the kilometres a bit. What did we do last Sunday as our long run was?
So we did a half marathon as our long run last weekend, just leading into Berlin, just to see how our legs are feeling after Gold Coast and jetty to jetty again. Wasn't fast, wasn't just running for fun, taking photos and talking to people as we always do, which is great. And we did parkrun on Saturday, as always.
Yeah, so where did we go for parkrun? We went to Kelvin Grove Parkrun in Brisbane here. So that's a nice sort of parkrun. It's 1.5 Ks out and back, and then you go in the opposite direction, 1 kilometre and back 1 kilometre. So amazingly, when we were there at parkrun, we bumped into some people we know from Bunyaville who are actually joining us when we go to Berlin. So they're coming to Berlin to run the marathon as well through Travelling Fit. So Paula and Andrew will be there, and their friend Beck was there as well at Kelvin Grove Parkrun with us. So really like that course. It's probably, I think, the 4th or 5th time I think we've run it, Tara?
Yeah, I think about the 4th or so. It's got some gentle inclines. Nothing like Bunyaville, but it's...
it gets a little bit cold, but it is what it is. And how's your training been, Tony?
Yeah, we did a 16K there on Saturday. It was, I think I've mentioned it before, we're doing the high-low strategy this time. So this was our low week, so we did a 16. Legs are a little stiff and sore in the calves at the moment. So, and that tends to happen once we start building some load in it. So, but still generally feeling pretty good. It's going to be an interesting week this weekend for us because I've got a small little medical procedure happening on Friday, which is going to probably take us out of action for a long run, at least on the Saturday. And as you know, we don't like doing long runs. But anyway, if it's to be, it's that's the way we've got to do it, don't we? So
that's it. You got to just get the distance done when you can do it, but at the same time, you got to listen to your body. And we'll talk a bit about this later on. But watch those calves, because those calves tend to flare up, and then they lead to hamstring issues and lower back pain. So stretch them out and do the right thing.
It was funny. I was actually having a health check yesterday for the new job that I'm taking on, and she asked me about any musculoskeletal injuries, and I said, "Is that broken bones?" I don't have a great medical background, so is that broken bones? She said, "Oh no, and muscle tears and whatnot." "Oh yeah, I've torn my calves a couple of times." "What?" "Yeah, so just about it. There's a torn calf muscle story in every marathon that I've ever run. So, but anyway, I think she was quite shocked that I just sort of accept that as part of what I do. So now you two have also got the Sunny Coast coming up in a couple of weeks, correct?
Yeah, I think it must be about maybe 2 weeks. I guess it'll be, by the time this airs, it'll be around about 2 weeks time.
13th of August.
So we're just doing the half again. And Patrick, our son, has decided he didn't get enough at Gold Coast, so he's going to join us at the Sunny Coast for the half.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic news. And we won't be running at Sunshine Coast, but we'll try and do I think we're scheduled to do like a 25 or a 30 that weekend. So we'll try and knock that over while you guys are. Well, we'll do it on the Saturday, as you know, instead of
so we've got So to us, it's more about having a bit of fun this one, maybe trialing a few different things in a race circumstance, but nothing too crazy for us. It will be just a lighter training run for us, and we come straight back out of that into sort of the longer distances then in the training plan. The 27Ks, the 30K runs over the next sort of 4 or 5 weeks before we then drop down.
It's all starting to build up, isn't it? So a little bit of news around the world. We've got the Melbourne Marathon and Half Marathon as sellouts. So I think October 9 or early October is the dates for the Melbourne and Melbourne Marathon and Half. They call it the Marathon Running Festival, and it's really interesting because the only places that you can now register are in the 5K, the 10K runs, and the 3K walk. So well done, Melbourne Marathon sellout. And some news on Sydney. We've got the 7-hour cutoff determination, or what it means is that very similar to Boston, the 7-hour cutoff at Sydney will commence from the time the final runner crosses the start line. So if you're in, and I'm not sure how the Sydney Marathon waves are working, but if you're in an earlier wave, you've got well past the 7-hour cutoff. But if you're in one of the final waves, you just need to be aware of that. But you probably don't know when the cutoff time is actually, because unless you're the last runner, of course. So, and Sydney, their last of the early birds finish on the 31st of July. So when this comes out on Friday, you've probably only got 2 days to take advantage of it. And they currently got 13,000 starters. So I think that's a fantastic.
13,000 starters equates to probably about 10 or 11,000 finishers. So they're still short of that 15,000 finisher number that they're looking at, but they're well on track for it. They're doing well.
Yeah.
And you said Melbourne Marathon before. So yourself and Sharon have done Melbourne before? Yes, we have.
We did the Melbourne Marathon in 2019, and that to this day is the fastest marathon we've ever run. So I found it a challenging marathon because that was our second ever marathon, and our first one was New York, and you're spoilt. I know it sounds horrible. It sounds strange. But when you run New York Marathon as your first marathon, you are 100% spoilt. And then you go to Melbourne, and instead of the streets being lined by thousands and thousands of people, then you might get 10 or 20 or 30. And it can be really challenging. So
we did the half there back in, it would have been 2017, I think.
Yeah.
And there's quite sections from what we remember, particularly around Albert Park and the Formula One racetrack. There's not a lot of crowd in that section.
We did get greeted by millions of flies, though.
Yeah, there was lots of flies.
We did it. So,
but the awesome thing that I really love is everyone, no matter which distance you're running, you finish inside the MCG.
Yeah, magic, and that was quite an experience coming into the MCG. We missed the cutoff at the 22K mark, I think it was, on St Kilda Boulevard. So we had to come back, and so we're in sight of the MCG, and we're doing loops between Punt Road, and I think you had to do 7 loops to make up for the distance that you miss in the course. So that was quite frustrating because there you can see the MCG, and you've got to do loop. So that was quite challenging. Hey, the other little piece of news is one of our favorite events, and an event that you've done and that Sharon and I have done, the Outback Marathon, is this Saturday. I'm repping the gear and supporting every runner that's out there this Saturday. It's one of the, if you haven't considered the Australian Outback Marathon as part of your marathon or running journey, please do, because there's a range of events. You don't have to do the marathon. There's the half, there's the 11K. I think there's a 7K, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
6, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a range of events, but it's a magical place and a very well organized event.
Definitely one to put on the bucket list for anyone. And my biggest recommendation is, if you do book it, spend that little bit of extra and go the platinum package, which is the 5-day package. And you get to see everything. You see Uluru, you see Katajuda, which is the Olgas, and you get to go for a trip out to Kings Canyon and explore out there, which is truly fascinating. But definitely worth it, and definitely, if you can afford it, to step it up to the platinum.
The dinner under the stars was amazing with the sky thing. And they just do a fantastic event, and Michael, the race director, actually calls everybody out by name, and it's just, we've got real serious FOMO that we're not there this year.
And we do have Michael coming on the show in a couple of weeks to give us a bit of a recap of the event. So that's going to be something to look forward to as well. Now, Tim, you've got a little bit of news there about some new course records, I see.
Yeah, so there's a lady that runs ultra marathons, well known in the ultra world, and I'm not sure if everyone knows about her, but her name's Courtney DeWalter. She's an American lady, and if you get a chance, go and connect up with her on Facebook or on Instagram, and just follow her racing that she does. She typically beats the men most of the time. She runs phenomenal races. She does very little training. She trains by feel. She doesn't have a nutrition plan. She trains if she feels like running. If she doesn't feel like running, she stays at home and does nothing. But she's run 2 of the most difficult races that are out there, particularly in the US. The Hard Rock 100, which is a 100-mile race, 33,000 feet of climb or elevation in the race, which is equivalent to about 10 kilometers of elevation over 100 miles, 160 kilometers. And she won the women's division, won it by about an hour and a half, came 4th overall, and ran it in about 26 hours and 14 minutes. But then 3 weeks earlier, she'd run the Western States 100, which is one of the most difficult races over there as well. Again, around about 18,000 feet of elevation, which is about 5.5 kilometers of climb. Ran it in about 15 hours and 29 minutes. Again, won by her category by over an hour and a half. Came 6th overall. So she's done backyard ultras. She's done the UTMB in Mont Blanc. She's done all the big name races, and she just gets out there. No fuss, no real. I know she puts in the effort on training, but she just goes with how she feels. She doesn't have a big team behind her. But when you follow her on Facebook and you follow her on Strava and see what she's doing in that ultra world, it's quite phenomenal.
She's just a very down to earth person who will listen to her body, and if she can't complete that race, she's like, okay, cool, I'll pull out and we'll start again the next time. She's not afraid of listening to her body and what it can and can't do. So it's really humbling to watch her. She doesn't have any of this fancy running gear. She runs in these like almost board shorts and a t-shirt type thing. So I mean, she just really doesn't have any pretentiousness about her. She's very down to earth and humble.
And she's one we've followed for a number of years, and she's quite phenomenal. So if you haven't heard about the Courtney DeWalter story, definitely go and Google her. It's pretty easy to find her. You type in Courtney DeWalter, DAUWALTER, and you can hear her story. It's quite an amazing story.
Excellent. Well, let's start looking at some of these marathon tips and tricks. Now, we've basically done some research and we've looked at some of the commonly asked questions from runners on other podcasts and in running groups. And so tonight we'll be looking at 4 main areas: preparation and training, nutrition and hydration, mental preparation and race strategy. And finally, we'll be looking at recovery and post. Now, this is designed to help you finish your next marathon, not just lining up for the start. In some ways, that's almost the easy part. So it's about completing the marathon. Now, also, please bear in mind, we only talk from personal experience and knowledge. I'm certainly not qualified in any way, shape, or form to be telling you what to be doing, but I encourage you to listen in and maybe test some of the stuff that we talk about and see if it works for you. I think you guys have said you've run 8 marathons in the past, or it might be more. I'm probably wrong
13.
with that. Yeah, 13, just a little shy of that. So,
Get it right.
and Sharon and I are sitting around that 7 and 8 mark ourselves. So we've done a couple. So we've just found little things that help us along the way that may help you. So, first up, the first question that we're going to look at is a common question that's asked, and it's about the training plan running into a marathon. And so first up, I'm going to ask from Team Ellis Running, what is the ideal duration?
Well, so I don't think there is an ideal duration. A lot of people sit there and say that they have to do no more than 3 hours, or that they have to do a certain amount of distance. Personally, Tim and I, we run to feel. I can't go as far as what Tim does by any means. Tim will like to run about 37 to 38 kilometers before a marathon as his last long run, whereas I go no more than about 32.
Okay.
And I can go up to 4 hours on leg time, whereas Tim goes to about 3.5. I will walk quite a lot of that if I'm going to the 4 hour mark. And to me, it's about time on legs. It's about letting my body know, because there is no way that I'm going to be doing a marathon under 4 hours. I'm not that fast. So I like to just let my body know that this is what we're preparing for. It doesn't matter if you're going fast or slow. This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Whereas Tim can go at a marathon a lot faster than I can. So he's quite happy to bring his speed.
I don't know if I'm happy. It actually hurts more to run slower, but it is. We're probably the wrong people to ask about plans, because we don't actually run off a plan for our marathon. We have an idea of what we want to do, but I know there's other people out there that'll go download a plan, and they're so religious and so strict to that plan that if it says get up today and run 10, 15 Ks, they go out and run 10, 15 Ks. Yeah. We tend to, as Tara says, run by feel, but we also are different in that we have a good, strong foundation base.
Yeah, you've got a good load continually. That, from what I've seen, based on some of your Strava, there's always a good load and a good foundation and a good base. So, and maybe that gives you a little bit of a quicker turnaround. So I know when people are prepping for a marathon, a lot of people seem to, like, to me, the common consensus is like this 16-week program. And even if you go onto the Sydney Marathon website, there's a couple of free plans there that you can download. So if you are a little bit unsure about what a plan could or should look like for you, maybe download some of those. There's beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and all of them are based around 16 weeks. Now, from my own personal experience, 16 weeks I would find too long. And similar, I guess, to Tim and Tara, even though our base is nowhere near what you guys do on a continual basis. To me, I think our ideal prep is around that 8 to 10 week preparation leading in, so that you sort of, once again, just get a bit of a rough plan. What are your long runs going to be? We try and do a long run around that 30 to 35. We always run together. That's just part of some of the things that we do. But it's an interesting thing, because people that do a 16-week, also what I find is that around that 8-week mark, all of a sudden they're in the grind. And, sometimes that's going to have a negative effect on you,
Correct.
potentially. A lot of people get injured around that 8-week mark, so they're halfway through their plan. So ultimately, it comes back to what feels right for you. And Tim and Tara are constantly telling us, listen to your body, and I
Definitely.
think that's really important. So
Yeah, you're right about those long plans too. I know so many people that get to about that 8-10 weeks and they just want it all over. They're not enjoying the training.
Yeah.
They're not enjoying the experience. And the marathon is
Yeah.
almost like, I can't wait to get it done, and then it's over and done with, and I don't have to tick that box in my life.
Mm.
And I get that. We have it so much easier. You and Sharon have it easier. You get up, you motivate each other, you do your training together. If you are doing it for the first time, don't discount a plan. The plans are good. They do tell you what to do, and they tell you how to get there. And if you do follow the plan, there's no doubt you'll achieve the time you want or the distance you're trying to go through. The plans are good, but as I said, for us, you know, I come out of a history as a kid of as a competitive swimmer, and everything I do in running links back to what I was trained as a kid and young adult when I was doing my swimming training, which was build up a base, you know, change your distances around, do you know, short, sharp type stuff occasionally, do long, you know, slow recovery type stuff, give your body a break. And I've taken that same attitude into how we train for our marathons, which is very much keep that base up high and then, you know, build it up as you need to for a race and then bring it down after a race and take some time off.
So I guess with our first marathon, our training was completely different to what it should have been. We had trained for Gold Coast half marathon. We both achieved really, really good times. I'd done a sub 2. I think Tim had done like a 1:35 or something like that. So we'd really achieved what we'd looked to do for Gold Coast marathon, the half marathon there. And there's about 7 to 8 weeks between that and Sunny Coast. And I just said to Tim, right, if we're going to do a marathon, now's the time to do it. We're trained up. We're at our peak for half marathons. So we didn't really have a lot of time to think about our first marathon. I just said, right, that's it. We're doing it. Signed us up, and we just built up the distance from there. And that was still our fastest marathon as well. So
so I think that's the key to it is you've got to listen to your body. You've got to find what is going to work for you. You've got to find something that keeps it fun and keeps you motivated, because those plans can get very boring in at times. And the other thing is, and it's a common term, it's not something I've invented, it's actually quite a common term in the running world, but comparison is the thief of joy. And by that it means is don't look at other people and what they're doing on Strava. Don't look at what, you know, somebody else should be doing or what they're telling you that you should do. Don't compare yourself to others. Listen to your body, do your own thing, trust the process. And you'll get there. Once you start comparing yourself to others, trying to pace at somebody else's pace, trying to do somebody else's training program, it's inevitably when we hear about people who get injured. And then they've spent all that time preparing themselves, getting ready for an event, quite often paying a lot of money to go into the event, and then they're injured and they can't run it. So, comparison is the thief of joy. If you haven't heard that, definitely remember that. It's not just for your lead up to a marathon, but in all instances, Strava is one of those things that really kills people off because they see somebody else on Strava and they want to be competitive with that person and they want to try and beat them, or there's a segment they want to beat. But don't try and compare yourself to others. Just run within yourself, listening to your body.
And a walk is better than, like, if you're not feeling up for a run, a 4K walk is better than an 8K run where you're going to damage yourself and get injured for 2 weeks. Whereas if you walk for 4Ks and you can then run again in 2 days' time, that's much better for your training plan.
Yeah, I got to agree with you around the comparison is the thief of joy, because I'll look at Strava and I'll see someone like Terry doing his 16Ks every day. And
never compare yourself to Terry.
And then I'll see you guys have done a 25 and we've done a 15. I'm thinking, am I on the right plan? Or
yes,
you know, so you've just got to really back yourself on what you know and just continue to build into it. Which brings us to the next question, and the question is, how do I build up my mileage safely to avoid injuries? Now, I'm going to be the first one here that say I'm not an expert at all. My first marathon, the New York Marathon, I didn't run for 3 weeks before it because I tore my calf muscle. So I have all sorts of dramas with building mileage safely, but I'm getting better at it. So in your eyes and in your experience, how do you build your mileage safely?
So I think the rule of thumb is to go no more than, I think it's like 10% or something like that. So like if you're running 20 Ks, don't put it up to, 30 Ks straight away. Tim and I, obviously, because we have got that foundational base, we're able to sort of go straight from doing 10 Ks to a half marathon without worry.
Yeah.
However, I wouldn't be going past that 21 Ks myself, even with the amount of mileage that I get in my legs. I would go then now to 24, to 27, to 30, and I sort of base it around about a 3K increment each time.
Okay.
That's for me personally. Yeah. Obviously, everyone's different. And there can be a lot of walking involved in that as well, because you might get to that 27 Ks and just go, look, I know I've got to do 30. I'll happily walk the last 3 Ks out of that because it's distance and legs. And sometimes I might get to the 27 Ks and just go, I can't do this, and that'll do me for the day, and stop. So again, listening to that body and any niggles. Certain pain is okay, but certain pain isn't. So if you're feeling like you're getting any tearing or ripping or anything like that, fatigued muscles is a completely different pain to an injury pain. So I guess it's learning to listen to that part of it as well.
Yeah, the 3Ks is an interesting one for us because we go up in increments of 3Ks largely because 1.5 kilometers out and turning around and going 1.5 kilometers back doesn't seem as far. So adding an extra 1.5 kilometers on is only an extra 10 minutes, maybe less, 7 to 10 minutes of actual running out, and another 7 to 10. So mentally, it's not a big step up, but it is an extra 3Ks. And we will sometimes go 21 to 24 and then maybe hold it at 24 for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then if we're feeling right, we'll go to 27. And if we're feeling good, we'll hold it there for a week or two and then go to 30. But if we feel really good, we might go from 21 to 24 and then to 27 if we think our body can cope with the loading on it as well. The other part which you're talking about there is how do I build up my mileage safely, and safely being the key word there. It's the thing the running plans don't talk about, which is you need to look after your body. You need to make sure you get regular maintenance done on your body. That's massage or acupuncture. It means, giving your body a break from time to time. So,
and not just running. Strength training is a very important part of your running exercises. So dynamic stretching, strengthening, like by doing squats, body weight. It doesn't have to be you go to the gym and lift weights or anything. You can do anything at home. You use your bands, those resistance bands and stuff, things like that. You don't have to be technical with it. YouTube will show you some very, very good techniques as well. But strengthening is very important to those glute muscles, your core muscles, because that's where your running comes from. So if you're not strengthening muscles, you can't expect your body just to run.
Yeah, and as I said, the massage. So about once a month we get a massage, particularly when we're in heavy training. And that just clears all the gunk out of the legs. It loosens up all the muscles, gets rid of those knots. And that for us largely helps prevent a lot of injury, as does running in the right shoes and making sure you're rotating your shoes and you're not running in shoes that have gone past their prime. A lot of people who are new to running will run in shoes that they've bought a year ago or 6 months ago, and they feel comfy, but they don't realize they've already done maybe 1,000 kilometers in those shoes and they're no good for running anymore, and they're leading to other injuries. So it's about knowing your body, knowing the gear you're running with, but also doing that maintenance on your body. the strength, the conditioning, the massage, the rest when it's tired and it needs a rest, you rest it.
And sleep. It's really important to try and get as much sleep as you can. As well. Don't
absolutely.
try and survive on 5 hours sleep and then go and expect your body to go and run a 30K training run the next day. I know Tim and I joke about having a beer the night before a marathon. Yep, we have one beer, but we certainly don't get on it, that's for sure, before we have a long run.
And the key to it, I think you've said it already, Tara, earlier on, is distance beats pace. So don't worry about running, at 5-minute pace or trying to, set a, the world's fastest time for that race or that training session. Back it off a bit, because the distance in the legs is more important than the actual pace in the training.
Yeah. And one of the other little things that Sharon and I now do is that when we're doing a long run, we prep like it's race day. So we get all our gear out the night before. We have, the carb load. We make sure that we do exactly what we would do on a race day.
Yep, absolutely.
And then obviously the long run, we map out the course. And I think long run strategies is a show in itself. So, but yeah, there are so many things to be mindful of within your plan. But the key is that you want to be showing up there on race day, refreshed and ready to go. And so that's about building that mileage safely and making sure that whatever plan that you're on caters for that. Now, I will say in YouTube, there are a number of people who have documented running a marathon without any training. So if ever you wanted to understand what it was like, go onto YouTube and do a search of I ran a marathon without any training, and you will get a feel for what some of these people went through. So all right, let's look at you don't want to be doing that. So let's look at nutrition and hydration. And this is a little bit prior to, the whole concept here is about how am I hydrating and fueling both my training and the marathon. So let's one of the things that always strikes me here is the concept of don't do anything new on race day. And in so many ways, you can almost bring that into long run, but sometimes you've got to be testing some things in long run because it's less risky, I guess. You can always cut a long run short. You can't drop out of a race day. So, during I've lost my question. So what should I be eating before, during, and so let's talk about the marathon day itself. So what should I be eating before, during, and after the marathon? And Tara, I know that this has been an ongoing journey for you with your nutrition. So let's start with you.
Okay, so it's taken me up to marathon number 10 to get this correct. So it took a long time of trial and error. With myself, I know that if I eat too much the day before or the morning of, I will get stomach cramps and I can't continue on. Like, it just does not work for me. So I will usually have a heavier lunch the day before, and usually nothing with any fiber, usually just really plain carbs, really boring stuff. The night prior, I'll eat maybe a slice of really plain pizza, like a margarita pizza or something like that. And the morning of, I normally will stick with something very, very plain. So it will normally be either a banana, depending on the distance I do, or a piece of toast or 2 pieces of toast with just a little bit of honey sometimes, just for that sugar side of things. I try to drink all of my fluids the day prior and then stop drinking at around about maybe 6 o'clock at night and just having little sips of water from then on in. And the morning of, I try to drink just little sips of water as well. This just stops those toilet breaks that I need to have. It stops any stomach upsets. And then I just can focus on the race itself. And depending on when I've fed, like when I've had breakfast the morning before a marathon, I will have breakfast typically about 2 hours prior to racing, 2 to 3 hours prior to racing.
Yeah.
And then I start my nutrition on course 1 hour in, and then every 45 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
And with that nutrition during the race, what does that look like for you, Tim? Is that gels that you're taking as you go through? And do you follow a similar path during the race?
Yeah, so Tara and I, we actually have invested in and gone and seen a sports nutritionist, dietitian before, and she gave us a bit of a plan and gave us a bit of a discussion. So I think we've talked about it before, but the days leading into the race, you do your carbo load, but carbo load doesn't mean much more than just having one extra piece of carbohydrate during those couple of days. On the race day, we were about the same, but I'm a bigger person, so I need a little bit more when I'm running and a little bit more for breakfast. But again, it's the same sort of foods. It's maybe a banana or a Cliff Bar or a couple of pieces of toast or an English muffin or two for breakfast. And then out on the actual course, it doesn't really change. I've got a pretty easy gut, so I'm fortunate I can have most of the nutrition that's provided on the course. As far as the electrolyte drinks go, I can drink that without any real issues anywhere I go. I'm fortunate. I know others like Tara really struggle in that space. And as far as food goes, I mix it up a little bit. I do get sick and tired of one thing for the entire race every sort of 45 minutes. So I'll take some shot blocks and I'll take some Morton gels and I'll mix it up. And I also add in a caffeine strip. So a Revy's caffeine strip, I'll have that as well. And maybe a caffeine gel, just depending on how I'm tracking at that point. But the caffeine you've got to be really careful with if you have caffeine and you're exercising and you're pushing yourself to the limits, especially if you're taking other painkillers and things like that along the way. It can be actually quite detrimental to you, especially if you get dehydrated.
And it can cause stomach upsets.
And it can cause stomach upsets. So again, it's stuff you need to train for. As I said, I'm pretty relaxed in my gut. I can have most things without too many issues. But as far as the electrolytes go, I'll try and grab one of them from about 10 Ks onwards. I'll try and grab one at every drink station where there's an electrolyte offered, just to replace the salts in my body. I do sweat an awful lot. I do lose a lot of salt. In fact, if you see me after race, if I've got a dark hat on or a dark shirt, it's just covered in white stains from the salt coming out. So I'm aware of that. So I do try to drink a lot more electrolyte when I'm on course than what maybe others might do. And every 45 minutes for me, I take two shot blocks or a gel.
Cliff blocks.
There's obviously some level of carbs that you need to be replenishing, and I think it's important for everyone to actually acknowledge that, because when I first started, longer runs or marathons or half marathons, I thought it was a great opportunity for me to lose some weight. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work because you're not at your optimum. Your body's starting to shut down and it's starting to do things that it shouldn't be doing. And so you do need to understand. So I try and I think I've spoken about once again before. I don't like gels, but I use little blocks from Precision Nutrition. And each one of them is 60 grams of carbs. So I take 30 grams every 5K. And so it's half a block. So, and if I haven't cut them up the night before, I'll just chew into it. So, so that's my nutrition while I'm on course. And the other thing that gets asked a lot when you're leading into big marathons, especially, and no doubt you guys have seen this in any Berlin Marathon group, that people worry about hydration on the course. And there isn't a marathon that we've run where hydration, that they've never put water out or they've never put electrolyte drinks out. There's always water on the course. But it also then begs the age-old question, how much water should I be drinking? And especially during the race, but also during training. I know you guys sort of map out your training session where your water, where there is water available, for example, but how much water should I be drinking? And what have you guys learnt along the way?
So we have the water stops along the way, obviously, where we do our training. We also carry our own hydration packs with us, and that's mainly because it adds extra weight to our body so that when we're running in the race, we've lost that weight and it makes us faster. But no, we carry all of our other nutrition in those packs as well, so it makes it easier for us. I know myself, after having done so many marathons, that you can get a thing called hyponatremia. So if you take in too much water, and now this happened to me at the Outback Marathon, and this has happened to me at Gold Coast twice, where I've had a really hot run. So you think you need more water. By doing so, what happens is it actually creates a dilution of your electrolytes and stuff inside your body and creates some really bad chemistry going on in there. The nicest way to put it is, once you've lost your nutrition, you can't get it back again and you can't recover. So once you get to that point, that's when you like hit the wall, or you just can actually do some serious damage and even death. So having too much water can actually be quite as detrimental as not having enough. Every single person is obviously different on how much nutrition and how much water they need to take in, depending on body size, how much they sweat, how their body metabolizes. It is something that you do need to practice, and that is where your long runs come into it. So by practicing on your long runs, you learn very quickly how much you should and shouldn't take in.
Yeah,
so,
great advice. Great advice.
The trick is also no two races are the same as far as where their water stations are located. So it is about knowing before you go into the race where those water stations are, and knowing about that before you're training. So is the first drink station at 3 kilometers or 5 kilometers? That could make a difference. And for us in our training, we do try to replicate at times where the drink stations might be. But it's also important to know from a food point of view, if you're taking gels or you're taking Cliff Blocks or whatever, you need to wash them down with water. It's part of the process of digestion. You need the water to come through. So you need to have your gel, 10 minutes, 5 minutes before you have your water. So you need to know where those water stations are in order to plan out when you have your gels or your nutrition along the way. So it is important. And just on that hyponatremia, this is the actual definition I found about it during the week. It's caused when sodium levels drop in fluids outside the cells. Water gets in there and then attempts to balance the concentration of salt on the outside of the cells. The abundance of water in there will then cause the cells to swell, and most cells can then adapt. Whilst most cells can adapt to change, the brain cells can't. And that's when you can cause all sorts of damage if you have too much water out there. So it is something to be mindful of. At drink stations, we've worked it out now. We only need a little gulp at each station. We don't need to drink the whole cup. They give you a whole cup of water, but you really only need a small amount each time. And the trick is to monitor your levels. We monitor it when we're running. The first check is, am I sweating? Yes. Am I continuing to sweat? Yes. Am I not sweating? Well, that's problematic. I probably need to drink water and slow down a bit, right? And they're the key tricks to it, and monitor your sweat levels.
Yeah, it's almost like if you're feeling the need to gulp down water, you've probably gone already past a stage that could potentially be dangerous. So you then just need to reassess your goals and maybe, as Tim said, slow down and maybe just, take a little bit of that stress off your body. So one of these days I'll share the story around my Boston Marathon, because, that was fundamentally dehydration 101. So, and the lessons you learn from these errors that we make along the way make us smarter and better individuals, I guess. So let's look. Yeah, my wife would disagree with that statement, that I'm getting smarter. But anyway, let's look at mental preparation and race strategy. So let's look at first, how do I stay motivated during those long training runs? Team Ellis, what are your thoughts?
Well, you can listen to the Flying Runner podcast to begin with. That would be the best motivation. We tend to do our long runs, especially when we're training for the majors or overseas marathons. We run together. So we sort of map out what our last week's been like, what our week ahead's going to be. We talk about everything in life. I know it seems weird. Other people go on date nights and have dinner. Tim and I have Sunday morning runs together to, have our date mornings, I guess.
We also have date nights and go out.
Yes, we do actually do those as well. But
shopping for new running shoes, maybe.
Yes, that's right. That's right. To me, we have headphones, like bone conducting headphones, aftershocks, so that we can listen to some music or podcasts. We motivate ourselves as well by just putting ourselves into a different spot. Like, so when you're in a really, really tough position when you're on a bad run, you can just sit and go, it could be worse. I could be in this position, or I could be doing this. I'm very lucky. I've got 2 legs at work. I'm grateful for that. I'm healthy, I'm fit, and I'm able to be out here in the sunshine. It's warm, or even if it's bucketing down rain, you've got feelings. You've got, you bring yourself back to what you were actually feeling at that time. And it's okay to feel bad when you're running. It's okay to feel like absolute crap is the nicest way to put it. It's not all fun and games, but if you can actually enjoy it, put a smile on your face and just go, it could be much worse. That's personally how I do it anyway.
Yeah, and
we are fortunate. We've got each other. We've got a routine where every Sunday we get up at 4:30 and we're out the door by 5. And we're out there starting our run at 5:30, and we run the same course, so we're familiar with where we're going. We know what we're doing, and our course is pretty stunning. We overlook the bay. But other motivations, I guess, if you're running by yourself, could be to go and find a running club or find other people that you can meet up with on your run. Even where we run, we say g'day to every runner as we run past them, and well done, give them some motivation. And you got some feedback this week from some random person on one of the Facebook sites you're on, Tara.
Yeah, so because obviously we run the same course, we wave hello, good morning. We recognise the same runners. Don't always know these people, but on Running Mums Australia, there was a post that said, just wanted to give a big shout out to the lady and man that I see running every Sunday morning. You always say hello. She put the shout out on RMA, and I'm like, oh, I think you're talking about my husband and I. And then she's like, yes. So you don't realise that you're actually motivating other people. So
just a simple thing of saying hello as you run past other runners and saying good job or well done. Yeah. You don't know what that does to somebody else. And as well, it makes us feel pretty good. It gets us out of the routine of talking to one another. We're talking to somebody else as we go past.
And making their day. So let's talk about race day, and what are some of the strategies that can help people push through the fatigue that we're obviously going to feel during the race? Now, I'm going to start this one off because I've got a pretty interesting mental strategy. And, there are some people that can't sleep before a marathon. There are other people that just worry about things like getting to the start line, all that sort of stuff. And the way I look at it, and this is going to sound really strange to everyone, I look at it that I've had some pretty crap days at work and I've managed to get through it. So whether it's 8 hours or 7 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours back in the younger days, I've had some pretty crap days and I've managed to get through them. So all I'm thinking about is the day before when I go to bed is I've got, potentially 5-6 hours on the course tomorrow. That's it. I'm going to get through it. Just like I've got through my really bad days at work. And so that helps me and of course, having everything prepped out the night before is also part of the strategy. But I get not a bad night's sleep prior to a marathon. So and then on the start line, I just know I've got 6 hours in front of me at most, and I'm going to get through it. So I hope that helps people with their mental strategies. Prior to the New York, we had the pleasure of listening to Rob DiCostello. He was there with the Indigenous Marathon Foundation, and he just talks simply as well, just one step in front of the other. So as you're finding it tough during those marathons, one step in front of the other, And it doesn't matter if that's a running step or a walking step. You know, the amount of people that may, you know, whenever I tell people I've run a marathon, people always say, oh, the first question I often get is, oh, so how long was that? 42.2 kilometers. And then, oh, and you ran the whole way? It's almost like, well, no, there were stages that obviously Sharon and I used the Jeffing method, but most people, you know, we even heard from Terry there last week that, you know, every now and again, he's just got to stop, reassess, walk for 20 seconds and get going again. So it's one step in front of the other. And if we continue to do that, we're going to get to the finish line. So in regards to mental strategies, and we need to start getting quick, but because we're running out of time. And so mental strategies for you two. What do you guys employ while you're during the race?
Yeah, look, my mental strategy, I guess, is just to have a good time. I've paid money for this. I want to finish it. So if I don't have a good time while I'm doing it, what's the point in running? Like, so to me, my motto has always been finish lines, not finish times. So if I stop and take selfies with friends, or if I want to take a photo of something, I will. I don't care. I want to enjoy my marathon. And I know that sounds weird, but I enjoy my marathons. I enjoy the long distance. So yeah.
And you guys do. Whenever I see your long runs or running in the races, there's always random selfies with people that you've come across, and I think that's amazing. So enjoying yourself is absolutely a strategy. So the next question in this segment, I'm going to hand it over to Tim to answer. I'm going to combine two questions. The first one is about how should I pace myself to avoid burning out early in the marathon? And I think Tara wrote, Tim needs to kick this off. So I'm thinking there's a story there.
Thanks.
And then should I have a race plan, or should I just simply aim to finish? So Tim, how would you answer those questions?
So the racing pace is an interesting one, because you always go in with a plan. And I think for the first 12 marathons I've run, I've run a number of them with Tara or whatever. And the ones I've run with Tara, we've run more or less to the plan that we wanted. But the ones where I've run by myself, I've always gone out too hard, too fast. The body feels really good. You've had a wonderful taper. You're feeling good. You're getting through the first 10 Ks. You're not feeling any pain. The legs feel bulletproof. You feel awesome. You're 5 minutes in front of where you should be at 10 Ks, and you're thinking, wonderful, I'm going to get a PB. Everything's going to fall into place. You get to 20, 21 Ks, and again, you're starting to feel bulletproof again. You've hit the halfway point, and you're going, this is fantastic. And then inevitably what I find is my pace then just drops off rapidly down to, walking pace. So you've got to go in with a realistic pace that you want to do, but you've also got to go in with a plan. And for me, I always have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. Plan A might be, I want to go sub 4 hours. Yeah. Plan B might be, okay, if I don't get sub 4 hours and something goes wrong, plan B is going to be, I want to be sub 4 hours 30. And then plan C is, well, that's out the window. I'm just going to have some fun and get to the end, right? And plan C is always, it's blowing up, it's exploded, but you know what? I don't give a shit. I'm really going to just enjoy whatever's left of this and get through to the end as best I can. Thankfully, I haven't had to get to plan C very often where it's all turned to shit, but I have missed plan A many times because I've gone out too hard too early. And the trick for me and most other people who do a lot of running will always say, whilst the body feels good, just back it off over those first 10 kilometers. And I think there's a 10-10-10 model, which I can't remember exactly what it is, but for the first 10 miles, which is 16 kilometers, run with the head, which basically means slow down and just stick to what you wanted to do. Don't run any faster. The next 10 miles, which gets you to 32 Ks, is run with the heart and really just get, the body moving, get to 32 Ks, because as we know, and I think you said it last week, that's when the real marathon sort of starts. And then the last 10 kilometers is basically hang on for dear life and get to the end, right? and the 10-10-10 model is part of that plan A or pacing strategy that you have. But it's definitely something I'm not an expert on. I haven't really ever run a marathon to the pace that I wanted to. I think Gold Coast this time round, just recently, was probably the closest. I went out at a very even, comfortable pace till I hit about 28 Ks and then started to get a bit twingy from maybe the previous day's running, maybe the load I've had previously in the hamstring. The hamstring tightened up and I just backed it right off and then got to 30 Ks and thought, well, stuff it, I'm going to go with plan B, go sub 4 hours 30 and just make it to home in that time, which I did it with plenty of time to spare and enjoyed the experience for what it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice there. And it's once again just that whole pacing scenario. And I love that the comment about running with your head, because especially some of the majors, they start with a downhill. And you know, London starts with a downhill, Boston starts with a downhill, and it is easy to get carried away and go with the flow. And it is important to understand that as part of your, whether you call it a plan or a strategy, to run to what you want to do, not necessarily how you're feeling. Because when you hit those hills at 25 or 35 Ks at Boston, you certainly feel if you went out too early. All right, so let's talk recovery then and post race, or even recovery and post long run. So the questions are: what should I do for recovery after the marathon, and how long should I take a break from running before resuming training? And interestingly, some of the things that we do, Sharon and I do, are things that you're probably not going to do each and every day. So we call a bottle of Coke the Red Ambulance, and we got that name when we were listening to some of the podcasts in preparation for London. They call it the Red Ambulance. So I've got no idea what it does, but it's just one of those amazing things that just seems to help.
Caffeine and sugar.
Yeah, so whether it's the sugar or there's some magic formula in there, it just helps. So and having the Red Ambulance attend to you after the marathon or a long run is a good positive way. And the other thing we love is getting a Macca's chocolate thick shake. So the only drama we have with that is that most of the Macca's stores thick shake machines rarely are operating. And there's nothing more frustrating for us than going through a drive-through at Macca's to say 2 large chocolate thick shakes, and they say, I'm sorry, our thick shake machine's not working. So, but yeah, I mean, so they're two of the things that we swear by. What about you guys?
So the thick shake is a great one because that's the protein. So one thing that you must do after exercising or for any muscle repair is to have protein as soon as you can, because it increases the repair time for your muscles. So you can actually recover a lot faster having protein. So obviously milk has that protein, the chocolate has the, the sugars and stuff like that. I will make protein balls for Tim and I. So they're just like mature dates and oats and almonds, some other nuts, some cacao, like just a bit of everything mixed together, and protein powder mixed in with it. We will always eat those afterwards, and we'll also have some electrolytes straight away afterwards as well. So just to keep keep everything flowing through our body to make sure that it's working the way it should afterwards, and to making sure that those muscles repair very quickly. We also stretch. So before we even shower, we stretch.
Yeah, excellent. And how long do you normally take a break from running after a marathon?
After a marathon, we will walk usually the next day, go for a bit of a walk. It depends on how far we feel like going. We will start running properly running, probably the Saturday afterwards for park run. And it's a gentle run. We're certainly not breaking any world records there. Usually around about 30 to 35 minutes we'll set it for park run. But look, everyone's different as to speed. Sometimes we can walk it. It depends on how we're feeling. We certainly don't get back into the running, hard running straight away. We normally just walk it out until we're feeling ready for it.
Usually a couple of weeks before we get back into the hard running again. your body's going to have a lot of micro tears in those muscles, and they do take some time to heal.
Yeah.
You know, and so as we said earlier, you've got to listen to your body. You've got to know what your body's wanting and craving, and doing that. We know people that go straight back into running, and we've just done that now. We've gone straight off Gold Coast, doing a double, straight back into running because we have to for Berlin.
But it's slower.
And it's
a lot slower.
And it's a lot easier. And we'll gradually build it up. But after Berlin, we'll probably take almost 3-4 weeks off after Berlin as far as our long runs go, and maybe only do a park run and maybe and some midweek running light stuff until we're ready to get going again. But it really is an individual thing, and it's about listening to your body. If you turn around the day after a marathon and you go and run another 5K sub 20-minute time at PB, you're probably going to end up doing some damage to your body.
Absolutely. Great advice once again. Final question, and it's one not on whatever they use, not on notice or on notice. What shoes are you planning to run Berlin in?
I love my Brooks Ghost. A lot of people don't like them for long runs. They say they're too cushioned. I really like them. I will use my Brooks Ghosts for all my runs. So I'm just a little bit biased. I don't change my shoes around too much. I will alter, like, from this color Brooks Ghost to this color Brooks Ghost, but I don't. Monday might be purple and Tuesday might be green, but I don't actually change my shoe brands or style unless I'm going to a glycerin. Really, I think that's really the only other one I go into. But yeah, Brooks, I'm happy with them.
Yeah, I'm the same. Both of us have some feet issues that we see a podiatrist for. And we have orthotics that we wear. So a Brooks shoe, particularly the Brooks Ghost, is a nice neutral shoe for us and our orthotics, and it suits our feet and our running conditions, I guess, that we've got. So we'll change if the podiatrist says that the next version of the Brooks isn't as good for our feet, and then we'll change to whatever he recommends. But at the moment, for us both, it's Ghost 14s.
What about you, Tony? What are you running in?
Well, I might share that a little bit later. So at the moment, I'm got 2 pairs of shoes in rotation. One is the Saucony Tempest for my long runs, and I find that shoe. I love Saucony shoes. I run in the guides for my daily smaller runs, and I run in the Tempest for my longer runs. But I also run as part of that rotation in Hoka Arari 5s.
Okay.
So I do have a box sitting in behind my background that is my because I like to get shoes just for running a marathon. I'll probably open that box maybe 5 weeks before the marathon and just wear them in a little bit. So, but I might do that unboxing on a video or something. But yeah, I swear by Saucony shoes. I was a Brooks Adrenaline person, and in my journey, I've gone from Asics Kianos to Brooks Adrenalines to now being an absolute devotee of the Saucony range of shoes. So awesome. Guys,
it comes back to that comparison is the thief of joy, right? So there's a lot of people out there that, what shoes are you wearing? Oh, I'll wear the same. Don't. Just wear what suits your feet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't suit everyone else.
And there's some real strategies around buying shoes, can I tell you? So many people, like when shoes come out and you're looking at $270 for brand new models, there are strategies in place that you can get them for much cheaper. And maybe that's another show that we can share with that, because Tim made mention that potentially there's some runners out there that just have the same shoe and they just run in the same shoe each and every day until it's like worn out and walking itself. And then there's other shoes and other runners, that probably have a plethora of shoes that they take half an hour to choose which shoe they're going to run in each and every day. So there's this real range of runners, but fundamentally you don't have to be going out of your way to buy the most expensive shoes. You got to get shoes that work for you. And when you find shoes that work for you, stay with them. And I can tell you the reason why I've shifted from shoes the whole way. Not enough time on today's episode to do that, but I think I've finally fallen in love with the shoes that I need. So, all right, guys, what a great chat. As I said, we've sort of run out a little bit of time here, but we never don't have enough time to hear Tim's funny. So one of the highlights of the show, I'm told. So I think Tim says that.
You're putting a lot of pressure on me, guys. So I came across this one the other day. So this made me laugh. It's a term. It's a term called run hole. Have you heard the term run hole before? No. So a run hole is a runner who's missed a training run, and as a result of missing that training run, they become quite aggressive and rude. So as in, hey Tony, did you miss your run today? Because I think you're being a real run hole.
Okay, that one was a bit funnier.
Yeah. I can understand that. I know some people exactly like that. Hey, next week we have an amazing episode. So Tony to Tim, what's coming up on next week's episode? See, we are organized here. I've got a sheet here. So what's coming up next week?
Well, I don't want to blow our trumpets here, Tony, but I think we've got a massive show. Not just a massive show, a big show. No, what's bigger than big? An enormous show next week, right? And I'm not underestimating that. In fact, I'm going out on a limb to say that this is our best ever podcast. It's sort of hard when it's going to only be our 5th podcast, but
I don't know. We've had some pretty good podcasts. This one's
it's going to blow everyone away. So in our next episode, we're going to have the very special honor of speaking to an absolute legend of Australian running. I'm not going to give anything away at the moment, but this person is a household name. You would have heard of this person. This person has been involved in Australian running for a very long time and has been on the world stage. And we're going to say this is one episode that you're not going to want to miss. It's going to be a very entertaining and exciting episode to listen to. So stay tuned.
Yeah, can't wait.
What it is.
I just cannot wait. I am so excited about the person that we are going to be talking about and sharing with you, our listeners and audience. Anyway, that brings us to an end. If you have enjoyed the show or if you've enjoyed the tips, let us know. Let us know. Put some wherever you're watching this. You're on our Facebook page. Let us know what are some of those tips that you found beneficial today, or maybe share some of your own tips to help the community. If you have those tips. If you've enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe wherever you've listened or watched the episode. Of course, as we know, video of this episode is available at Spotify and YouTube, and audio is on Apple, Amazon, and Google podcast platforms, and so many other podcast platforms. We are getting right out there, which is fantastic. Remember, everyone, every step forward is a victory. Lace up, hit the road, and we will catch you on our next episode. Until then, happy running.
Happy running.
Happy running. See you later.